Everyone is present. We acknowledge that this land is the traditional territory of the Three Fires Confederacy of First Nations, comprised of the Ojibwe, the Odawa, and the Potawatomi peoples, and the Huron-Wendat peoples. We value the significant historical and contemporary contributions of the local and regional First Nations and all of the original peoples of the Turtle Island who have been living and working on the land from time immemorial. Any declarations of conflict of interest? Seeing none, I need a mover for the adoption of the published agenda. Moved by Councillor Verbeek, seconded by Councillor Mady. Any questions? All in favor? And that carries. And I'm going to turn the public presentation over to Director Gerard and the Stantec Company.
Okay, so thank you, Council. First, I'd like to introduce the Stantec team. Stantec team from left to right is Hannah, Jan, and Chrissy. So they're responsible for the entire plan. If you came to some of the public information centers, you'll recognize their faces. They were at both sessions, face-to-face with the public and with council members and anybody who had questions about the project. Without stealing the show from the Stantec group, the EA was undertaken to evaluate the impacts of future development in the Colchester area. There is a large-scale development, Colchester Bay development, which triggered the need to expand the sanitary service area, which necessitated the need for the EA. The impact that was assessed by the Stantec team is the impact of these developments for the next 20 and 40-year horizon, and it identifies the impact to sewers, to lift stations, and ultimately to the town's Colchester lagoon system. From a high level, there are some impacts to the town system. There are some future improvements that are necessary to take on this development and future development. But what's important to note is that this EA and the environmental study report is an engineering planning document that's used to guide us in the future. You should recognize tonight that there is no decisions being made tonight here on approving the improvements to the pump stations or to the facilities themselves, but rather just the presentation of the document and your overall acceptance of the planning document, and the approval to proceed with a 30-day review and filing a notice of completion with the Ministry of Environment. So without further ado, I'll pass it on to the Stantec team, specifically Chrissy, to present the findings of the report.
Hello, and thank you for the opportunity to present here tonight. I do have a slideshow presentation. Yeah, perfect. So I'm here today, as Kevin sort of introduced, to present on the municipal class environmental assessment for the Colchester South Sewage Works expansion. Next slide, please. The purpose of this study was to determine the preferred solution and conceptual design to accommodate increasing wastewater servicing in the community of Colchester South. And the purpose of this presentation here tonight is to present an overview of the environmental assessment and the environmental study report, which will include a brief overview of the study background and the opportunity statement, an overview of the municipal class environmental assessment process, the identification and evaluation of alternative design concepts and design solutions, and the recommended conceptual design to accommodate this increased development. Next slide, please. So for some background, the Colchester sanitary sewer system was designed and constructed in the 1980s. And based on this original design, there would be a sanitary sewer system that services Colchester South from the north end at Ogden Street and County Road 50, on the east side at County Road 13 and Island View Lane, on the south side of Lake Erie, and on the west side at County Road 41. The existing sanitary collection system consists of a gravity sewer system with 6 pumping stations. All of the wastewater is directed towards the center of this map, where it's pumped at pumping station number 1 into the Colchester South wastewater treatment facility. It's further treated and then outletted into Lake Erie. Next slide, please. The Colchester South wastewater treatment facility is located on a 12-hectare parcel of land south of County Road 50 with access off of Cornwall Beach Road. It consists of three-cell aerated facultative sewage lagoon system with a rated capacity of approximately 1,800 meters cubed per day, a peak flow capacity of 8,000 meters cubed per day. And based on the historical operating data, which we reviewed from 2015 until 2021, it has good historical operating performance. The final effluent concentration that is discharged into the lake is well within the non-compliance limits that are set by the Ministry of Environment, Conservation and Parks. Next slide, please. So as an opportunity statement for this environmental assessment, this Class EA was initiated by this Colchester Bay development, which is proposed west of the Colchester Urban Center, outside of the existing service area, meaning that it was not originally accommodated through the existing sewer system and pumping stations and facility. So some changes may be required in order to accommodate it. This development would potentially include mixed style residential units, parkland, a hotel, and some commercial retail spaces. So this represents an opportunity for some social and economic growth within the community. This development would generate an increase in wastewater servicing demands beyond the existing capacity of the wastewater treatment facility. So as an opportunity statement, this study will determine a long-term solution to accommodate increased wastewater servicing from this proposed development, as well as other developments within the community and the existing Colchester South sewage servicing area. Next slide. So now I'd like to present a background and the key features of the Class EA process, which was used throughout this. The Ontario Environmental Assessment Act aims to preserve, conserve, and properly manage natural, social, economic, and other environments and undertakings for any planning or developments within Ontario. So this work followed that standard procedure. As a Schedule C project, it followed these 5 phases, which are generally phase 1, the review and identification of a problem or opportunity statement, which I discussed in my earlier slide. Phase 2 is evaluating alternative solutions to the problem. Phase 3 is evaluating alternative design concepts, which can accommodate the preferred solution. Phase 4 is preparing an environmental study report. And phase 5 is implementing the preferred design. So phases 1 through 4 were completed as a part of this EA study, and the implementation would be done as a part of future works. Next. This provides, it might be a little difficult to see, but it provides more details about the requirements of the Class EA process. We followed the flow path outlined in red, and there was 2 public information centers that is a part of this project. One was during phase 2, the alternative solutions phase, and one was during phase 3, the alternative design concepts phase. And now we have gone up to the point where we've developed and created a draft environmental study report. Next slide, please. So as a part of phase 2 of the Class EA process, alternative design solutions were identified and evaluated, leading to the selection of the recommended design solution. Several conceptual design solutions were proposed to address the identified opportunity statement and accommodate increased development in the community. Alternative number 1 is do nothing, which is a required part of the EA process, although it sounds counterintuitive. It provides a basis for comparison. Then the other alternatives that we looked at were restricting community growth, reducing sewage flows and inflow and infiltration to the sewage system, modifying operation of the existing infrastructure, discharging to a wastewater treatment plant outside of the Colchester South community, building or constructing an independent on-site wastewater treatment plant for this development, and expanding or upgrading the Colchester South sewage works. Next slide, please. In order to evaluate the different solutions, we developed evaluation criteria based on standard engineering, planning, and design principles, previous experience on projects like this, and applicable municipal plans and commitments set out by the town of Essex. Generally, they're split into 4 different categories: technical suitability, social, natural, environmental, and economic impacts. And each of the solutions was ranked or given a score in each of these categories or assessed based on these different criteria in order to get an idea of whether or not they would be considered feasible solutions. Next slide, please. First, we started with a screening of the alternatives. The first 4 alternatives generally were not considered technically suitable. They wouldn't allow the community, or it wouldn't allow for those excess wastewater demands to be accommodated. And that would not be seen as a socially or economically favorable solution, because it would then stagnate development, or no development would be allowed within the area. So that's the main reason why the first 4 solutions were not really considered a viable solution. For number 5, discharging to a wastewater treatment plant outside of the Colchester community. The closest wastewater treatment plant would be in the town of Harrow, which is at a considerable distance from where the pumping station 1 and the existing Colchester facility is. So although it may technically be able to accommodate those increased flows, there would be a significant environmental impact from installing the pumping stations or piping leading to the other facility. And that would also come at a significant economic cost. So that was not carried forward for detailed evaluation. Alternatives 6 and 7 were considered feasible in all of the evaluation categories. So they were brought forward for detailed evaluation. Next slide, please. So this detailed evaluation showed that the most preferred alternative, and therefore the recommended solution, is alternative number 7, to expand and upgrade the Colchester South Sewage Works. The significant reason for this is that it's able to accommodate additional development and wastewater flows from the Colchester Bay development, as well as other developments or natural growth that may occur within the existing sewage servicing area. Whereas the independent on-site treatment plant would not have as much flexibility for other areas of the service, for other lots within the service area or future development needs, whereas expanding the existing one, all of the wastewater for the whole area already is directed to this facility. So from a technical standpoint, it makes the most sense. There's also no changes to the existing outlet, which results in lower impacts to or less potential for impacts to archaeological, built heritage, and or cultural resources. So for these reasons, it's considered the most preferred alternative. Also, it comes at a lower capital cost investment and operation and maintenance requirements, as opposed to operating 2 facilities. You have to just operate 1 facility and continue to upkeep that. So for those reasons, it was considered the most preferred. Next. So as a part of the next stage in the Class CA process, phase 3, alternative design concepts were identified and evaluated, leading to the selection of the recommended conceptual design. Alternative design concepts considered for the Colchester South Sewage Works generally fell into 3 different categories. The first category was the sewage servicing analysis, where we looked at the existing capacity of the wastewater treatment plant, the pumping stations or lift stations, and the collection system or the pipes themselves. The next stage, we looked at the wastewater treatment technologies available that could be used at the existing facility to increase the capacity and also to meet any effluent criteria requirements. And the third category was the biosolids management strategies. So any of these wastewater treatment technologies generally produce excess solids that are called waste activated sludge or biosolids. There's many names for it, but generally those need to be managed somehow and ultimately disposed. So these are the 3 general categories that we looked at for alternative design concepts. Next slide, please. For the sewage servicing analysis, we looked at the proposed development Colchester Bay phase 1 and 2. And then we also looked at 6 proposed developments within the existing service area. These were identified on the interactive mapping service for the town of Essex as developments that they would foresee occurring in the next 20 years. We also looked at the natural population increase based on Statistics Canada data for the community of Colchester South. And based on those different factors, we determined the potential flow that would be going to the existing facility. And from this, if you look at the sort of the first total, it's approximately 2,000 meters cubed per day, which is greater than the existing capacity of the treatment plant. And with the addition of Colchester Bay, it's significantly increased to approximately 3,600 meters cubed per day. So based on this sewage servicing analysis, we know that an upgrade to the wastewater treatment plant would be required. Next slide, please. And this is sort of better represented here, where we have a summary of the rated capacity of the wastewater treatment plant, the historical average, and the 20-year projections with and without Colchester Bay. The historical average occupies approximately 57% of the rated capacity, whereas the 20-year projections would occupy 125% or 201%. So with or without this development, the capacity of the wastewater treatment plant would need to be upgraded. Next slide, please. Next, we looked at the pumping stations, the capacity of the existing pumping stations, and the 20-year flow projections for this existing service area without Colchester Bay development indicated that there would be a need for upgrades at pumping station number 1, 2, and 3, which are generally on the west side of the community. And then the addition of this Colchester Bay development would result in the need for additional capacity upgrades at pumping stations 1, 5, 6, and 7, which are on the east side of the town. For the sewer system analysis, we looked at the ultimate flow projections from the existing service area and the proposed developments, and it indicated that no pipe upgrades would be required, assuming that the flow from this development is distributed between multiple outlets. The existing piping was designed slightly larger, so it has the ability to accommodate this development without any changes. Next slide, please. The next part of our analysis that we looked at for sewage servicing was the proposed effluent criteria for this wastewater treatment upgrade. Due to the need to amend or update the environmental compliance approval, and because there is such a large increase in wastewater servicing demand, we created a model, a dilution mixing model, and we did an assimilative capacity study to determine what the new effluent objectives and limits would be with the MECP. So this table shows the existing effluent objectives and limits based on 2009 environmental compliance approval and the proposed effluent criteria based on the findings from that assimilative capacity study. The proposed effluent criteria will be finalized based on inputs from the MECP once this ESR is sent for additional comments. Next slide, please. So the next phase of the EA, we looked at alternative design concepts for the wastewater treatment facility itself and different treatment technologies that we considered to accommodate the increased flows from development were aerated lagoons, which is what's currently being used at the facility. We also looked at sequencing batch reactors, activated sludge processes, and membrane biological reactors and moving bed biological reactors. Each of these would be outside the existing footprint of the facility. We have a proposed layout in our later slides. So you'll get a chance to see that. Next slide, please. For the evaluation of wastewater treatment technologies, the SBR was identified as the preferred reaction, the sequencing batch reactor, because it's proven to generate good effluent quality at a moderate capital cost and capital and operation and maintenance costs. And it's also the process that's used at the Essex Pollution Control Plant. This provides a benefit because the Ontario Clean Water Agency, who operates the Essex Pollution Control Plant, also operates the existing Colchester South facility. Having the same process used at both facilities means that they're more familiar with the operations and maintenance requirements of such a facility. There's also an opportunity to improve using the sequencing batch reactor. It's considered moderately complex to operate and maintain, but because they're familiar with this and there's potential for remote operation, this can become a lot easier for the town of Essex. There's no external clarification required to meet the effluent criteria, which means it'll have a moderate footprint on the site and lower potential for odor, as well as ability to meet those effluent. It is anticipated that this facility without external clarification would be able to meet the effluent quality requirements. Next slide. As the next phase, we looked at biosolids management processes. As I mentioned, there's typically excess solids produced at wastewater treatment plants that need to be managed, and they're typically done. That is typically done through a combination of these three processes. First being stabilization, second is dewatering or thickening, and third is disposal. For the size of the plant, stabilization was not considered feasible option. It's typically very expensive, and based on the amount of biosolids that would be produced at this facility, it's not technically feasible to apply in this scenario. So we looked at different options for dewatering thickening paired with disposal. Alternative one was constructing a dewatering facility on site at the Colchester South facility and then trucking dewatered sludge to the landfill. The second alternative was trucking liquid sludge to the Essex Pollution Control Plant, where there is an existing dewatering facility. It would then be dewatered, and that dewatered sludge would be trucked to landfill. Next slide, please. So when comparing these two alternatives, trucking the liquid sludge was identified as the preferred option due to a lower footprint requirement at the facility and lower capital costs. The construction of an on-site dewatering facility could be reconsidered when there's major upgrades being proposed to either of these facilities in the future. In total, if the major difference between the two, aside from the operation and construction side, is the number of truckloads and the impact that those number of truckloads would have on the society or the community that lives in that area. For the dewatering on site, there would be an average of 1 truckload per month, whereas for the trucking to Essex Pollution Control Plant, there would be an average of 4 truckloads per month, which is not considered significant impact in comparison to the operation of this dewatering facility at the site. Next slide, please. So here we have the proposed layout for the plant upgrades. The proposed layout for an SBR plant at the Colchester South facility would include a screening and grit building, followed by the sequencing batch reactor systems with a sludge holding tank and a blower building, a UV disinfection building. In the future, depending on the upgrades or the requirements from the Ministry of Environment, Conservation and Parks, dewatering building or a tertiary treatment unit could be implemented. During detailed design, the addition of these units could be considered. And in that case, if the MECP requires the proposed facility to meet more stringent effluent criteria, then these could be potential units implemented to meet those goals. The proposed site layout is positioned such that there's a minimum of 100 meters from all residents on each side of the facility, and this is based on the MECP design sewage guidelines. Next slide. For the next steps of this process, or the Class EA process, upon council approval, the project would proceed to next steps, which include finalizing the study report, posting the notice of completion, and distributing to review agencies and the public. There would be a 30-day review period, and then we would file the final ESR, after which it would move forward into the implementation phase of the Class EA process, which would include a more detailed design. Next slide, please. Thank you for this opportunity to present, and I'd now open up for a question.
Thank you for that presentation. We recently had a tour of our Essex facility, so I'm sure that helped us understand a lot of what you just presented to us. So at this time, I'm going to need a mover and a seconder. The presentation, Stantec Consulting regarding the Colchester South Sewage Works expansion municipal class environment assessment be received. Moved by Councillor Mady, seconded by Councillor Verbeek. Any questions? Councillor Verbeek.
To you, Deputy Mayor. I'm just a little caught up on the dewatering piece. Why is it only money that would keep us from including it in the, like, if we're going to take this big step, is it only money that would keep us from this? We just learned how expensive replacing the truck is, and so this would add a lot of kilometers, Colchester to Harrow, a minimum of 4 times a month, and then back to the landfill from there. I'm just wondering, why aren't we looking? And if you if it was part of the report and I just missed it, is it just the money?
So we presented these options. It's not say during detailed design, we'll say whether is that dewatering facility will be as part of new plan or deferred to later. In the report, we'll have wording there, say exact option to do will be, so to answer your question is not say, so that as a phase one plan expansion will not including dewatering facility. It's just say there's an option there available for which ways to go preferred will be further reviewed during final design stage. But if that, you know, if the town or the council wants to be just say, want to be included that now we can just revise. That's the purpose of a presentation here. We still have opportunity to update the report based on the comments received.
I'm just wondering if we shouldn't have all the information, because we do know that, you know, looking at this through an environmental lens, there is going to be an impact of having the truck on the road transporting this stuff from Colchester to Essex and then back to almost Harrow. So I mean, we have to also think about that environmental impact on the truck and the wear and tear on these very expensive trucks.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. So if we actually go back a couple of slides, there was an evaluation of the biosolids management. And the two alternatives that were actually discussed were the dewatering on site and disposal at the landfill. So something similar to what you see at the Essex Pollution Control Plant, as well as dewatering at the Essex Pollution Control Plant, or as well as dewatering at Essex and disposing at the landfill there. So they were assessed from a technical, social, and natural environment and economical. So there are multiple factors, including the environment, that were assessed. So when you look at the natural environment, you know, we also have to be keenly aware operationally of what we're doing. We already have a treatment. We already have a dewatering facility at Essex. So there is a synergy there for a low cost option to transport the sludge to Essex to take care of it. As Chrissy had mentioned, we're not talking about a significant amount of truckloads. We're talking about 4 per month. So 1 per week. So it's not something that I see as a major detriment. But as Jan actually mentioned, we will assess that during detailed design when that time comes. And we'll look at it again from many of these factors as well. So does it make sense operationally to continue to send sludge to Essex if Essex is inundated as well? So we'll assess those things operationally when it comes time to implement some of these suggestions. But as a high level study, the study suggests that we continue to dewater at Essex and utilize that facility.
Deputy Mayor, thank you, Director Gerard. I just wanted to have that conversation about these trucks, and I guess the next piece would be like the 4 trucks. We also heard that on the Friday too. Like, so what is that based on? What is that based on? Like, if we just had the one new development, because we've seen these projections for some pretty significant changes in the next few years, right? So what is the 4 trucks based on?
Through you, Deputy Mayor, I can answer the question and then I'll maybe pass it on to our consultant to answer it in a more technical fashion. But when you build a plant, all that development doesn't come all at once. It ramps up as development occurs. So I believe what they're quoting on the 4 trucks is the maximum for the full capacity of the rated capacity of that plant. So it would ramp up to 1 a week. It may be 1 every 2 weeks for a while, 1 every 3 weeks for a while, but the maximum would be 1 every week. And maybe we'll have Stantec confirm that.
That quote for 4 truckloads per week is based on the 20-year design, which is the firm capacity of this expansion. So approximately like Kevin said, it would ramp up at 20 years time. If all of these developments occurred, that would be the number.
I'm just trying to get a sense of gravity as to capacity here and what we're striving for. Like, can you give me an idea, say, in dwellings, as to what our capacity is and what our maximum would be through these improvements?
Capacity of the facility is equivalent population of 4,000 people. That's for 1,800 meters cubed per day. So this proposed facility, we're looking at 3,600 meters cubed per day. So nearly doubled. Around the expansion would allow you to accommodate approximately 8,000 people.
Maybe you had a question.
Chair. Kind of furthering on what Councillor Hammond was just asking. So this design right now will bring us up to the maximum number of the 6 proposed developments plus Colchester Bay 1 and 2. And that would max out our plan. If we needed further development after that, we would have to look at doing this again, or is there still capacity after that?
This capacity would, like you said, confirm it's for the existing service area, natural growth. You have the 6 additional developments and you have the Colchester Bay development. Beyond that, you would have to look at either some process upgrades or capacity upgrades.
Councillor Hammond.
Through you, Chair, can you give me some sort of ballpark figure as to what we're looking at cost-wise for this? Should we go with the great improvement? What kind of ballpark figure are we looking at?
Give us a second. We have our report here with us. So the pumping, do you want grand total? Perhaps. So item number 1 is the pumping station number 1 upgrades, which is at the facility. Item number 2 is the pumping station upgrades for all of the remaining pumping stations. And then the item number 3 is the wastewater treatment facility. The total for all of that, including the contingency allowance and the engineering allowance, would be approximately $43 million.
Thank you through the chair. So I have a couple of questions going back to Councillor Verbeek's the sludge. We just purchased a new vehicle and there's some shifting around, right? We're getting this new vehicle. Will we have to modify the vehicle to transport the sludge because it is wet? My concern is just it leaking out. So I would assume that we would need some kind of tanker to transport the sludge from Colchester to Essex. So it didn't leak out. Is that what we're looking at going forward?
So we would actually likely contract this out to a third party since it's such an infrequent amount of trucking. Purchasing a vehicle for that infrequent of trucking would be, fairly high. So we would contract that out, but yes, you're correct. It is a more liquid sludge. So it wouldn't be the vehicle that you see at the Essex Pollution Control Plant. It would be something more sealed.
Thank you through the chair. It's not quite a follow-up. It's just an extra question. So right now, I'm sorry, I missed the number. I wanted to get it. Right now, if we build this $43 million sewage plant, what capacity are we at right now without building anything further? If we just built it for the residents that are there today, what is the capacity that we're building for? Do we know that number? Like, is it 10%? We'll only be at 10% capacity for what is currently in Colchester.
A slide showing the rated capacity versus the historic capacity. So, sorry, back a few slides.
There the figure shows 200%, the 120%.
Yeah, the bar chart would be good.
Yeah.
So the black bar is the rated capacity of the treatment plant, the historic average. So say there was no development just based on what's currently been happening from 2015 to 2021, you're at 57% of your treatment capacity. So no upgrades would be required based on the existing residence dwellings, all of that. With development not including the Colchester Bay, you would be at 125%. So regardless of this Colchester Bay development, you would still need.
Just to clarify, so we build this, so I'm assuming this is on what we currently have. Is it this is what we currently have? My question is, we build this new facility, nothing else is built yet because there's no shovels in the ground. So we approve this, council approves, it goes through, we build this facility tomorrow. What is the capacity at without any further development? Just, does that question make sense?
If yeah, so
It would be 125% for 20 years. Because if you do nothing right now, you plan. This is the 57% is already there. So you have a spare capacity is 43%. That 43%, if you do nothing now, only able to accommodate that growth next 20 years. Is that, I'm not sure the answer question?
Mr. Nucio?
Or if you were to leave the plant at, like, build a new plant per what's there, you're about 28% capacity of the new plant. I think that's the number you're trying to get to.
Building this $43,000 million plant, we're gaining about 25% more capacity is what I'm getting at. Right now, we're at 53%. We build the new plant and we'll be at 25%. So putting $43 million into this, we're really only gaining 25% more capacity.
miscommunication. Go ahead.
The chair. So in the slideshow, it presented that with the 20-year horizons, our growth over 20 years, plus the Colchester Bay development, we need almost 3,700 cubic meters per day of capacity. It's 3,659, I believe. And this proposed phase one of the plant is to accommodate all of that development, that 20-year horizon, which is 3,700 cubic meters per day. The report also does speak to the ultimate design, which is the 40-year horizon, which brings the capacity of the plant up to 7,500 cubic meters per day. Really, we're focused on that phase one 20-year projection. It's really difficult to estimate what flows will be required beyond the 20-year horizon. But the plant expansion for the quoted $43 million would accommodate all future 20-year development.
Thank you, through the chair. So in 20 years, this new plant is going to give us 37,000 cubic meters of sewage capacity. Right now, the plant we have, without spending a dime, what is our capacity?
Through the chair, it's 1,817 cubic meters, 1,800.
Oh, Councillor Blaze.
Sorry, through the chair. All right, last question. Is there any kind of government funding that we can get, especially with the new mandate by the provincial government that we must build all of these homes within a short period of time? Has there been anything yet saying that they're going to provide funding so that way we can provide sewage and water treatment facilities for all these additional homes that we are needing to have to build?
The chair, the short answer is yes. They're not always available. The timing of them always isn't the most convenient. Especially for growth related projects, it's very difficult to seek a lot of funding from provincial and federal levels of government because they believe that we have a revenue source to recover that, such as fees and rates. But with that being said, we have had lots of conversations at this table regarding provincial downloads, pressures about legislation for building homes faster, Bill 23, all those types of legislations that have really come down on municipalities. And it has been something we've included in our list of things to talk to of our MPs and MPPs and things that we would like to see addressed at AMO, things like that. So, it isn't something, it's something that is a possibility, but it's not readily available to us at this moment. But it's something that we constantly seek, something that we advocate for, and we'll continue to advocate for that. As a $43 million price tag is an immense amount of pressure on our existing tax base and our development community. So we do recognize that, this is something that really needs to happen from our provincial and federal levels of government.
Any other questions? One more question, Councillor Mady.
Through you, Chair, just to the one slide that you showed there. If we did nothing today, if we didn't spend a dime, does our capacity out there meet our 20-year forecast?
So if no upgrades were done to the sewage treatment, it would not meet the 20-year projection. So some developments would not be allowed to move forward.
Thank you, and through you, Chair. So no matter what, we have to spend some money out there. We have to do some development out there. It's just how much we want to see Colchester grow or not grow.
I'm going to call the question. All those in favor? Oh, we already received it, just to receive it. And that passes. Thank you. Thanks again for your presentation. Now I'll need a motion for adjournment. Moved by Councilor McGuire Blaze, seconded by Councilor Mady. All in favor? Thank you.